Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. A survey has been conducted, and the results of which I think will come as a surprise to absolutely no one whatsoever. It was a survey on public attitudes and how they perceive things, and one of the results is that the vast majority of people do not think that the SNP are working in the interests of Scotland or its people. Well, it's hardly astonishing news, isn't it? I mean, colour me surprised if it was anything other than that. But we'll take a look at the article and see why. But of course, the SNP are quite incapable of working for the benefit of anyone other than themselves. They're only in it for the power, the glory, and the money. They're all busy feathering their own nest to care about what is going on around them, about doing the best for Scotland, or about doing anything for anyone who doesn't directly involve themselves in their very tiny coterie of power at the top. So yeah, we'll have a look at this, but it is just an astonishing figure when you see how many people think the SNP are doing nothing for the people. Here goes. So, damning survey finds Scots feel SNP ministers don't work in Scotland's best interests. Well, it's hardly newsworthy, really, is it? We've all seen how they treat people. It's quite clear that they don't actually care. A survey on public attitudes has found the majority of Scots feel abandoned by Holyrood ministers. Fools, the fools at Holyrood. Scots have been abandoned during the economic and NHS crises, Scottish Labour has said. As polling reveals, the majority of Scots don't trust Scottish ministers to relieve pressures. A public attitude survey published by the Scottish Government itself showed that 55% do not trust the SNP to work in Scotland's best interests when it comes to the cost of living, compared to 37% in support of the approach. Now, when the Scottish Government, the SNP-led Scottish Government's own figures show 55% of people don't think that the government is working in its own interest, or in the people's interest, you wonder how they actually managed to get this published and not hide it. This is exactly the sort of things that they do hide. So you have to work out why they released it, or maybe they just had no choice. I don't know. It's not like the SNP to reveal and release things like this, is it? Meanwhile, the survey of 1,001 respondents found 59% did not trust the approach to dealing with the current pressures on the NHS. Nearly 60% of people don't trust the NHS being handled by the SNP. This includes long A&E waits and delayed discharges. However, 34% said they did trust the approach a great deal, while 7% were unsure. 34% can look at the NHS and say they trust the SNP's running of it, when there are thousands of deaths being attributed, when we know for a fact that Jean Freeman hastened the what they call delayed discharges, the bed blockers, and managed to clear 1,000 of them in record time. And that's got nothing to do with putting end-of-life care in treatment manuals. Of course it hasn't. Nothing wouldn't suggest anything of the sort yet. Jackie Baillie, Scottish Labour's deputy leader, said the poll results were damning and called on ministers to adopt measures such as the £100 water bill rebate and tackling NHS vacancies and retention. People are leaving the NHS in Scotland because it is so bad to work for, and they can't replace them because it's so bad to work for. It's a spiralling death camp, effectively. You go in and you're not likely to come out. It is truly appalling, and it's not the fault of the actual people who do the work there. This is all a managerial, strategic level, ministerial as well. Basically a catalogue of failure, heaped upon yet more failure. Nobody seems to have the slightest intention of sorting any of it out. Anyway, Baillie continued. She said, "We're in the grips of a cost of living crisis causing financial misery and an NHS crisis putting lives in danger, undoubtedly ending lives. This damning poll shows how many Scots feel abandoned by the SNP during the twin crises facing Scotland. Scotland deserves better than the same old excuses from this tired and out-of-touch SNP government. She said only Labour has a real plan to tackle the cost of living crisis, renew our economy and deliver a real NHS recovery. Well, what is it then, Jackie? Do tell. We'd like to know. You can sit there and say that you got a plan, but until we hear it, how do we know? What are your intentions? Anyway, a spokesman for Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville says we now know that Labour would keep the Tories' most abhorrent policies, such as the two-child cap, the R clause and the bedroom tax. It is nonsensical to hear them accuse anyone else of abandoning families struggling with the cost of living. That is deflection. When you are told that you're failing and your only response is to say that someone else would fail as well, it means you're not answering the question. You're not dealing with your failures. You're trying to deflect away. Let's not look at Labour, right? Ignore Labour. Labour aren't in power. Whatever they say or do is unimportant. Let's look at what the SNP are doing. They're the ones in charge and they are failing. But the SNP won't even admit the fact or acknowledge the fact that they are failing, and they're seeking always to push the attention away from them. But it is down to them. She said, with our limited powers, the SNP government has allocated almost $3 billion this year and last to tackle poverty and to protect people as far as possible during the cost of living crisis, including offering free school meals to all pupils in primaries 1 to 5 and in special schools, and giving families an average annual saving of around £400 per child. Right? And you're saying it's because you've only got limited powers. If you had all the powers and you were in independent Scotland, you wouldn't be getting the Barnett money. So how would you actually raise those funds in the first place? Would you answer that? Would you care to answer that question? Or is that too hard as well? Anyway, as a result of the action taken by the Scottish Government, what action? The only action you've taken is to make matters worse in every single policy area that you control. You've done nothing positive. Anyway, she said it is estimated that 90,000 fewer children will live in poverty. If they are, it's because you've put them there in the first place. In terms of children in poverty, Scotland's got the highest rate, simply because of 16 years of the SNP dicking around, chopping, changing and not funding anything. The most recent social attitude survey found that 2/3 of people in Scotland trust the Scottish Government to act in Scotland's best interests. 3 times as many who trust the UK government to do so. But just because the UK people don't trust the UK government doesn't mean that people in Scotland are particularly pro their government. The contrast could be clearer, the SNP spokeswoman said. The SNP government policies are lifting people out of poverty. No, they're the ones putting them into poverty. And Labour's duplication of Tory policies would push people into poverty. People are already there because of what you have done, and you're looking to deflect and to change. 2/3 says that they're claiming 2/3 of people in Scotland trust the Scottish Government to act in best interests, when we've just seen that 55% of them don't, and only 1/3 do. 37% do. Where's she getting this 2/3? Make it up as they go along. They look at the numbers, they look you in the face, and they just plain lie. They just plain lie to your face. It's no wonder everything under the SNP is falling apart at the seams, is it? Anyway, I shall round off and come up. I think the most surprising part of that survey is that 1/3 of people do trust the SNP. I can guarantee they're all SNP voters. But really, even the SNP voters must have eyes. They must look around. They must see the state of things. They must see how the hospitals are falling apart, how the education service is falling apart. Social care, transport, everything. Everything. Do these people just wear blinkers and believe the absolute lies they're being fed? Because if they do, they're absolute morons. And that's the trouble. They are. And they keep voting for the SNP. And so things will never get better while you keep putting the same fails in place. Anyway, she'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, 2/3 of you are right. Bye.